Hey crew, welcome back to another month of Metabolic Stability. Back out of form strong. We're in the fourth quarter of 2016. It's hard to believe that most of the year is already gone. But it's also a pretty fitting piece for this month's Metabolic Stability. We're going to share a little bit different format than we normally do. We're going to not necessarily give less, but we're going to take a deeper dive into some more specifics. That specific movement was actually rooted, at least when I started to look at it real seriously, and it was about the fall of, 2010-ish, athleticism and how important this movement is in regards to progression, accessibility, efficiency of equipment, and athleticism, because that's always what Josh and I are really taking a deep, hard look at when we put things out there. Can this make us a better mover? Can this make us more athletic? I mean, those two things should be pretty synonymous and things that most of us are trying to achieve. I was listening to a piece on Tim Ferriss the other day, and he was talking to Coach Sumner, gymnastics bodies, real well-known coach, talking about why you wouldn't want to move better. So that's kind of what we're focusing on as well. Fourth quarter in regards on the calendar year also means return of something, the return of football season, and that's kind of for me as a former football player and now somebody that coaches it. It was a really tie-in point for me in regards to why our sprinter stance sprint swing is so important in regards to that degree of athleticism and the carryover in that direction, but also has a little bit more broad and wide-scaping spectrum as well. So we're going to take a deep dive into the sprinter stance swing, why it's important, why you should be able to integrate it into your training program, and why it would be valuable to you. So can't wait to share that stuff with you. We've got a great month lined up for you in regards to training and the programming that you can put together with this, and I can't wait to hear about how you share it with your people. Talk to you soon. So we're back. We're going to take a dive, a pretty deep dive into the sprinter stance swing and the swing in general. The swing is a cornerstone movement nowadays, having been around in various circles for almost 20 years now. We've seen a lot of renditions of the swing out there. Most people are sticking back and kind of have stuck to the two-handed swing. You'll see a few people do one-handed swings, and those are very important drills. The thing that we're taking a look at with the sprinter stance swing is what's next, right? It's great to practice drills like the two-hand swing, right? Setting up as such, hike through, and to even take that variance to the one-hand swing, right? Right? Excellent components to any well-rounded program. But what happens, and what has seemed to happen, and I know it's mentally easier to just go down this linear progression of bigger. If you can swing a two-handed swing, a 16 kilo, then you go to a 24. If you go to a 24, then it's a 32. And a 32, so for some reason, makes this crazy leap to a 48. And now we've got 56s and 60 whatevers. Kilos, that is. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It means we've left all this stuff behind back here, and we're leaving a lot of training stimulus on the table. Whereas we could use the single arm swing. It's a great drill. It's probably, for me, I think a preferable drill for development of the whole body, not just the hinge, over the two-hand swing. But the two-hand swing is a great place to start. But then we have the sprinter stance swing, and it's real simple. People have told Josh in certain environments that it's complex. I just don't see how so. You set up in your normal hip width stance. You align heel toe. So I got my left big toe lined up with my right heel. That makes my right leg the driver leg. Doesn't mean my left leg's not doing some work, but it means that the right leg is the dominant worker. 60-70% of the work's being done over here. This leg's doing some work too. Now, we're not going to do two-handed swings with the sprinter stance position. It's just not the way it works. But we are going to do several other aspects of it. We've definitely got the single leg or sprinter stance inside kettlebell swing. So if I've got my right leg as my dominant worker, my left hand's going to hold the kettlebell and swing the kettlebell basically. So as such, boom here. And what this is this offset position, the slight offset, is very athletic. It's a base point for a lot of athletic movements and drills. You'll see it with linemen in football sometimes in moving positionally. You'll see it with sprinters and starting blocks. That's kind of why we called it a sprinter stance. We thought that would correlate mentally for people. But across the athletic spectrum, you're going to see this body position of a slight offset. Now, the heel might not be off the ground, but you get my point, is that we're creating that single leg power generation. What is the root movement or drill or activity for athleticism? The ability to run, sprint, jump, change direction. You got to do that off of one leg then the other. Like, that's kind of the deal, right? From there, so that's the base model, right? Single arm, single kettlebell inside, all right? That's your base model. We'll dig into the sling system and the cross patterning stuff in a second when we get a little bit deeper. From there, we can go double, right? So what I've done here, instead of chase that linear pattern of inefficiency in regards to equipment, because let's face it, like maybe you know, and if you just want to buy it for yourself, that's cool. If you want to gift yourself something, awesome. But if you're looking at business model, you maybe 2 or 3 clients can swing the 48 kilo kettlebell. That's cool, but like, what does that do for your business? Like, you're going to invest that big glob of money in that one item that only a couple people can use, when you could have more of these smaller items and make an impact in people's lives, 1, and 2, be more efficient in your training business. So, boom, as such, all the principles of swing still apply. Hinge the hip, you got to beat the weight to the bottom. Kettlebell's got to stay above the knee, you got to hike and pass through. It's real simple stuff. I'll set them up as such. So that's model number 2. Great way. I had a pair of 16s right there, 32 kilos total, 70 pounds. A very efficient way to get to 70 pounds. I didn't need to go buy one of these just to be able to swing 70 pounds. So there you have that. So from there, we have the offset kettlebell setup. So say you don't have that many pairs, right? But you have maybe quite a few lighter ones, and you still want to keep people a different stimulus. We're going to move the offset. The preferable method for progressing through the offset is to start with your heavier load, and hopefully this makes sense, closer to the center of gravity or midline. So I've got a 16 and a 12 for a total of 28 kilos. Is that right? Yep, 28 kilos. Right? So it's a way for me to make kind of that off number kettlebell load as well. Closer to the midline, and I got the 12 kilo on the outside. So kind of looks as such. Now, simply put, all I have to do to change or progress ever so slightly, I think we might get a little lost in that nowadays, is that the body, I think, prefers slight progression over like these big, not incremental, but these big linear leaps in loading. I think something that simple as just moving one kettlebell to the other side of the body can make a big difference. So now I've got my 16 kilo outside, but farther away from the midline, so it's going to challenge me to stabilize a little bit more. So as such, and that's going to challenge that oblique system, not just this big prime mover piece of meat on my hind end, right? So a really nice simple set of progressions there. Building athleticism, building equipment efficiency for your people, not completely dialed in, not avoiding it, but not just completely going from 16 to 24 to 32 to 48 to 56 to whatever the next size is, because that's what the people on Instabrag are doing, right? So it's a real nice piece. Like I said in the beginning, in the intro, it's where Josh and I came from this, and we're always trying to go with this is efficiency and athleticism. Hopefully this kind of helped you see it in a little more deeper look. We probably showed it. We've done this for 4 years, almost completed 4 years. So I'm sure we've showed this a little bit before, but I don't know if we've talked about it to this depth and degree. But I think that this is a place and a drill that's accessible to everybody, because there's a lot of stuff being done on a single leg out there, whether it's somebody that's in their later years of life going up and down steps. We've all had those clients, to whatever it may be. But this swing, the sprinter stance swing, will not only produce that hip hinge power that we all love from the swing, but you're also going to get those other intrinsic value items like addressing the sling system, being able to move load further away from the midline, and challenge those aspects of training that can't happen as effectively with the two-hand kettlebell swing in a bilateral position. Have a great one. Have a great fourth quarter. Hopefully you enjoyed your year so far and are going to make the best of whatever's left. Talk to you soon.
Hey guys, as Troy talked about, progressing the kettlebell swing is really important because we have a movement and an exercise. So the movement, this hip hinge with hip flexion, hip extension, projection of load. Something that's really unique, but something that is not only specific to the kettlebell swing itself. And Troy's already shown you some great ways to progress that movement. Now, there's other ways to do it by actually adding complexity of movement. And you know, we have the sprinter stance, but we also have the max lunge from our DVRT series. So many of you probably seen the max lunge where we come down, and you've seen the part where we swing the bag up and down. Again, that's hip flexion, hip projection, hip extension, projection of load. So when we're in the lunge position, we're in that hip flexion, driving out the hip extension. So going, especially drop step in the lunge, is a great way to build that quality. Now, most people struggle because they struggle on the eccentric, and that's where the deceleration challenges come about. But that's a lot of the value of the movement, both in the kettlebell swing and the max lunge. The deceleration, it might be even better than the acceleration and the projection of load. So we're going over some progressions of how to build that up, because most times when we see a movement, we go and try the movement. When we're unsuccessful, we write it off as not being productive or something we can use. So let's go and talk about how we're going to progress the max lunge. Now, we're going to start with a core bag here. So generally you're going to want to start with a core or power ultimate sandbag. Now we're going to start in the half movement position. And we all know that in the half movement position we can start building the qualities of our lunge. So for someone who's very unstable, this is a great way to sort of introduce it, because we're going to provide both the positioning and the instability of a basic lunge pattern. So digging into both legs, I want to bring the bag into a grip position right by my lat. So my elbow's digging into my ribs, my shoulder's not elevated, and I only have slight rotation of my thoracic spine. Because I'm digging into both feet, I won't get that over rotation. So I'm not trying to over rotate, I'm just trying to provide some little rotation of that thoracic spine. I'll come out, press the weight out, and then pull it to the opposing side. So believe it or not, this is a ton of core work, and the benefit of this is that I'm activating my lats and my core that work with my hip. So again, improving glute strength, improving pelvic control is more than just working the hips themselves, but working the integration of those chains. So lats loaded, grip is stimulating core strength, shoulder activation. I'm pressing out, which is really lighting up my core, and then pulling down the other side is lighting up oblique and core. So going back and forth, nice and slow. You'd be amazed at how even in people that do lunge well, that's a great activation drill for more complex patterns. For a beginner, that might be their lunge. For someone more advanced, might be their core training or activation work. Now from there, we can start building up the pattern more by coming standing. So now, I'm going to come my drop step. Now I'm just going to come to one side. Eyes forward, load up that lat, glute, press up. Pull, come down, like so. So again, I want to use that lat and core activation to give me some stability. I'm starting to build a pattern because I'm learning not only how to come up forcibly and project my hip forward, but actively pull the weight into my body and have better control and stability. Once I sort of master that level, I can change load and load placement again. That's kind of the cool thing with the DVRT system, that we can do small changes that create profound effects. So if I come to a strength USB, and I get into a front load position, now, again, I'm activating core lat, adding a little bit more load and challenge. When I come down, I'm starting to load up that chain a little bit more. So instead of using leverage as a loading factor, I'm using more direct load. But you see how I'm not over-rotating the movement. Keeping my eyes forward allows me to prevent that over-rotation. So I'll watch for this back hip coming forward. So if I'm not digging that back foot, that back hip's going to rotate forward. So the major mistake people do is that by not digging that back leg, they allow the hips to rotate and they're trying to rotate as much as possible. Well, we know because our hips are fixed that a lumbar spine doesn't have much rotation to it. So we're just looking at that thoracic spine. The other problem people make, especially in this front load position, is they don't create deliberate tension. So notice how my elbows are digging my ribs. I'm trying to pull the back apart. If I allow the back just to sink on me as I go down, I'm actually going to become less stable. I'm going to want to flex forward into the movement. So being deliberate about where you're creating tension from is going to allow you to create better stability. So then, after time, we can then start to introduce the actual max lunge pattern. Now, most of you are familiar with the giant swings that we do. That's all really cool stuff. It's all very good stuff. But I'm going to introduce it a little differently. So the point that people have the problem with, just like a kettlebell swing, is not the way up, it's the way down. They don't know how to absorb the force. They don't know how to get in the right position and posture. So a great thing we can do is add a little pulse. So this will allow people to understand the downward phase, build specific strength in that position. It's also, if we look at that down position here, we're going to get a split stance deadlift. Remember, instead of start, hip flexion, go to hip extension. We're going to get diagonal pattern, like a lift and chop, as we move the weight across. We're getting lateral stability. We're getting all these great things in a very simple looking drill. So it's a super valuable progression, and that's why we're going over it with you today. So I'm going to deadlift the weight up. Now, what I'm going to do is actively pull the handles apart. Again, that's going to activate my lats, give me a little more core activation, a little bit more stability. I'm going to come down and rotate to the same side at the same time. I'm going to come down in my bomb position, pause deliberately. I want to do a check down, pushing through both points of contact. A little pause, up, pause, down, drive out of the bomb position. So not just stand up, I want to actively push to the ground and drive out of that position. So again, rotate, see it caught me a little bit there. Make sure my back foot is active, handles apart, up a little bit, back down, pause, drive all the way up. Now, you'll find that it really allows that hip to lengthen or activates that obliques by pulling the handles apart. So even if you do this as a preparatory exercise for more complex lifts, you're going to be waking up so many of your muscles and you're going to be priming your body to move so much better. You want to do that probably 4 to 6 reps, depending upon the load and how you're using your program. The extra time under tension will be more fatiguing for your clients, so you want to take that into account when you're adding that into the overall scope of your program. So a great way to add several progressions to your max lunge, building complexity on that idea of the kettlebell swing, but more importantly, building greater movement quality as we progress to different levels. So anyone should be able to do the max lunge. What phase of the movement you're using will be relative to your goals, your fitness levels, and your needs.